Today we're going to talk about the Tier 7 French battle cruiser, I guess, Cherbourg. It is part of the new alternate French heavy cruiser or super cruiser line. Basically, a bunch of Dunkirks or Jean Barts in mini size. We'll talk about the specs of the Cherbourg, and I'll remind you again that these specs are going to be influenced by the commander build I have. It's Azerlane San Louis, mostly for the extra reload booster consumables. We'll run down the stats, I'll talk about how the ship plays and whether I think it's good. Full disclosure, I played this ship a long time ago, back when this line first debuted on WoW's PC. I ground through the Cherbourg entirely and played a little bit of the Brest, which is the Tier 8, not yet fully released. It should come out and be accessible in the next update, though. The Brest, I thought, was pretty alright. This ship, rather mediocre, and I think the same in World of Warships Legends. I'll explain why, but let's start with the stats, as usual. To begin with, Cherbourg has 49,500 HP, and you would kind of think it should have more based on the kind of ship it is, because other cruisers at this tier that are not super cruisers like this thing, not little mini Dunkirk Jean Barts, I think they have some more HP than this thing does. So not a lot of hit points to begin with. Torpedo damage reduction, 25%, which I think is, okay for a cruiser. The armor is also, halfway decent at least. It's got 25mm bow plating, which of course can be overmatched by practically everything you'll come up against. The side armor is 27, the deck is 30, so that offers a little bit of protection. And it's got a spaced armor scheme around the citadel, which is exposed, so you can be citadeled in this thing, no doubt about it, but it's not always going to be clear-cut and easy. And speaking of citadels, we get two there with the main guns, so we'll talk about those stats as well. The Cherbourg, being sort of like a Dunkirk Jean Bart thing, has 8 main battery guns, and they're all located on the bow of the ship, which probably makes you think that this thing is going to be good at bow tanking, but no. Against cruisers, sure, because they're not going to overmatch that 25mm bow plating, but if you try it against a battleship, you can expect to have a ton of your hit points removed. So don't try it, you want to angle the side armor against battleship caliber AP. As for the caliber of guns on the Cherbourg, these are 305mm guns, so same size as, for example, the Alaska, Yoshino, Azuma, those kind of things. They have an 18.5 kilometer range with this build. They reload in 28.3 seconds, which is an awfully long time for a cruiser. Got a turret traverse time of 26.1 seconds, which is actually really good for the size of guns, I think. But that is only because I have Einstein as one of the inspirations. The turret traverse in and of itself, without Einstein buffing it, is kind of not great. As for the shells, the HE does a maximum of 4,050 damage with a 20% fire chance. I don't think that's terrible, but it's not great. And the AP does a maximum damage of 8,200, which, I suppose that's fine for the gun size. And these are French AP shells, so they can do some incredible things sometimes. But the problem with these guns, despite the fact that we get 14k there against the broadside Flandre, the problem is that they are not always very accurate. You'll get that classic French shotgun dispersion, which is something I can deal with on things like the Jean Bart or the Richelieu or Bourgogne, or basically any French battleship. It doesn't so much bother me when battleships have not the best accuracy. If you get shotgun salvos every now and then, that's fine, because you're still shooting 15, 16-inch guns, whatever it is, and if a single shell hits, it's going to do a fair amount of damage. It bothers me a little bit more on cruisers like this with smaller guns, that the dispersion is not pinpoint accurate, because the guns aren't that big enough to begin with. We've got a slow reload. We don't have a lot of armor. I don't like it when these shells don't make contact. We'll see what they do against the broadside Suzuya 13 kilometers away, and maybe we can start to get an idea. Well, there we go. We get one Citadel, and on that shot earlier against the Flandre, we did 14K, but the follow-up salvo was like a single overpen for no damage. So these guns are inconsistent, and I'm not really a person that gets too tilted by inconsistency of main battery guns. And these guns kind of tilt me, so if that gives you an indication of what to expect. The AA defenses are probably not very good. The aggregate AA rating is 65, and the highest average DPS of these AA guns comes from the mid-range 37mm guns. They have a 3.5 kilometer range, and they do 73 average DPS, which is, well, the highest average DPS of any of these AA guns. So don't think this is a very effective AA platform. Luckily, CVs are not super prevalent at Tier 7. Maneuverability, though, is exceptionally good on this ship. This is probably the highlight, along with the concealment. We've got a top speed of 34.5 knots, plus we've got the classic French engine boost consumable, which gives us a 20% speed boost. So I think theoretically this thing could probably go in excess of 40 knots with that speed boost active, which is really good for a cruiser, very fast. Allows you to reposition and get on flanks very easily. And you can kind of see this thing would be good as a flanking ship due to that high speed, and when the guns do hit, even against battleships, they can hit pretty hard. So there's that. Then the turning circle is also great. It's only 670 meters, which I find actually kind of shocking for a ship of this size. The rudder shift is 12.5 seconds, which is fair enough for the size of the ship, I would say. And then the concealment is absurdly good. For some reason, with Mikawa as an inspiration and the concealment mod, I've got a detectability of 9.7 kilometers by sea. Now, if you want to do some really silly stuff, and you want to take out Azurlane Saint-Louis, or any of the French cruiser commanders that have the go-all-out skill, you know, the one that reduces your concealment when the engine boost is active, well, if you go that route, then you'll get something under 9 kilometers for this ship's detectability, which is absolutely absurd for a cruiser of this size with guns this big. That right there makes it kind of useful. In fact, the concealment, I think, is the only thing that is saving this ship from being not very good at all. I think the 9.7 kilometers by sea, coupled with these 305mm guns and their French AP, pretty good combination. Without that, this ship would be far more mediocre. But you can kind of see from this battle what the idea is. You want to be looking for the broadsides of especially cruisers, but also battleships, and shooting the AP at them to deal a lot of damage. Plus, you've got some charges of the main battery reload booster. I think there are only 2 base, but of course you can buff that. If you've got Azurlane Saint-Louis, you can use both fully packed and the skill that gives you an extra main battery reload booster consumable for a total of 4. Which is quite useful. Now, you can get maybe 2-3 salvos out with 1 reload booster. Should be enough to probably deal with a cruiser that's broadside to you, maybe not necessarily a battleship. And of course, if you do want to shoot the HE, which we haven't done very much this game, you shoot the HE, you get a fire, the enemy ship damage controls that fire instantly, we'll pop that reload booster, send another 2 salvos his way, and hopefully you get another perma-fire that burns for the full duration. I don't think we have an example of that in this game, but it can be done. The problem with this ship is that it just doesn't do a lot of damage with these guns, I don't think. They're just not consistent enough. The breast at Tier 8 should be much better. This seems like it's probably going to be the lemon of the line, although I haven't played the Toulon at Tier 6, so I don't really know how that thing fares. I think it had a fairly decent reputation on PC. It's probably something that I should check out. Cherbourg, though, I'm not super impressed. I wouldn't really want to play this ship on a regular basis for fun, but I would want to grind through it to get the breast, and I'm excited to see how that will fare out. Now, to be fair, though, even though this armor scheme is somewhat questionable, it is tanky. And I think it's a good idea to pay attention to this sequence here against the Flandre, which of course has 15-inch guns that can overmatch our bow. But our side armor is 27, so we should be able to angle it. And there you see he takes out one of our turrets. We're able to get a little bit of damage into his superstructure. And I thought about going for the ram at this point, because the game is basically over. I think he thought about it too, but no, we're not going to do that. We're going to deny that ram. Slip past him very carefully. Basically, the paint between the two hulls is being scratched, and we get out of that brawling situation relatively unscathed with most of our HP intact. The problem is going to be if this Flandre gets his guns turned around and shoots me right through the stern, he's just going to overmatch. But if he gets a shot on the side armor, well, I think he did just overmatch there through the stern, so no Citadel, not catastrophic. He is giving us a fair amount of broadside. We're able to deal a little bit of damage in return. Our secondaries are going off. The secondaries on this thing are not very useful. Flandre's secondaries are probably much more useful, considering the fact they started a fire on me. We're about to hit the island. Will we have enough time to reload and take this Flandre out? Hopefully. No, one of our teammates does it. That's fine. His secondaries do get 2 perma fires on us, though, and we're 30 seconds away from DCP. So, unfortunately, these fires are going to be lethal. In any case, Cherbourg is an okay cruiser. It's not great. It's not the worst thing in the world. Certainly the speed, the concealment, and the guns, when they work, do redeem this thing. But overall, it's not something I would want to play on a regular basis. I don't know if people disagree with me. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.